Shohei Ohtani is a man who needs no introduction. He is a baseball player who both pitches and hits at a very high level and is the highest paid person in professional sports in North America. So when a gambling scandal breaks out surrounding him and using his name, it's certainly going to get a lot of attention. And this story is actually a lot more fascinating than you might think just from hearing that alone. So if you know nothing about this scandal other than who Shohei Ohtani is, allow me to try and give a brief explanation for what we know and what we still don't know, as with these stories, there's always a ton of misinformation, and I do my best to try and clear some of that up. So the other person, the two key figures are, one is Shohei Ohtani, obviously. The other person is Ippei Musahara. That is the interpreter for Shohei Ohtani. And it's worth mentioning, he is not just an interpreter that a MLB team kind of just threw his way. He has been a friend of Ohtani's for a while. They met 11 years ago in 2013, and he's been an interpreter for Ohtani ever since. And again, keep in mind, a baseball interpreter is a pretty close job, right? I mean, for Ohtani, who does speak some English, or I believe he does just speak English, but isn't going to, you're going to be more naturally wanting to speak the language that you know better. And when there's only one other person who speaks that language fluently, you're going to become even more close in that situation. So here's what happened. There was a bookmaking operation that was under investigation, and during the investigation, I couldn't actually see definitively if it was because of the investigation or just unrelated, but it came out that at first, at least $1 million had been wired from Shohei Ohtani to the bookmaking operation. We would later find out that there was at least 9 payments of $500,000. So that's $4.5 million. That's where the $4.5 million number comes from. And worth noting, that is what was paid to the bookmaking operation. We don't necessarily know if that's how much was owed, if that's how much losses there were, or if this was, did some money come back the other way? We don't know any of that. All we know is that that was sent to the bookmaking operation. So this story comes out, and Mitsuhara says, yep, here's what happened. I got in trouble with gambling. I have a gambling problem, which, side note, should be mentioned. Sports gambling, very dangerous. A lot of people lose money doing it. 95% of people lose money sports gambling. It should be used as an entertainment, not as a way to make money for anyone out there who's considering it. Not saying don't, but just don't expect to make money doing it. But anyway, back to the story. Mitsuhara claimed that, any illegal bets that he made, because, gambling is illegal in California, and he claimed that he thought they were all legal bets, and that once he got in trouble, Shohei Ohtani, he was upset to find out the news, but he did agree to help pay off the bets, helping out his friend. An important thing to note is that the MLB still does prohibit legal gambling on any sport. You're not allowed to legally sports bet, and you're certainly not allowed to illegally sports bet. So that's worth noting, because again, Mitsuhara is an interpreter that works for the MLB, right? So him betting on sports is already a gray area. He did say he never bet on baseball, and that would be against MLB rules. He said, I was very sure that I shouldn't do that. So even if he himself placed a bet on an MLB game, that would have been against MLB rules, and he has claimed that that is not the case, and so far there's no evidence to the contrary. This appears to be true, but again, more information could come out. So for now, it's simply, what he says, and there's no reason to disbelieve him at this point, other than there's reason to disbelieve him about other things he said. So that was the initial story. Okay, Mitsuhara, he said, he got in gambling trouble. He, asked Ohtani to pay it off. Ohtani did pay it off. Here's where things get interesting. So later, Ohtani came out and said he had no knowledge of these gambling debts and that Mitsuhara stole money and told lies. That was a direct quote from his new interpreter, in the press conference. Ohtani said Mitsuhara never told him that was a media inquiry when the news broke. He didn't tell him about the scandal as it was going on. So that was kind of maybe part of what Mitsuhara's plan was, at least according to Ohtani. Ohtani's side of the story is more so that, I think he's saying that Mitsuhara's plan was his way of kind of trying to get out of this situation was hopefully to tell the media that he, paid money, that Ohtani helped him out. But that way, hopefully, that Ohtani never found out that he was stealing from Ohtani this whole time. Kind of a short-sighted plan if that was the case. But still, that's an interesting little wrinkle to talk about. Mitsuhara was fired from Shohei Ohtani's team. Ohtani mentioned that he had, he says that he was completely unaware of the massive theft, as his lawyers termed it, and he said that he didn't know about it at all until Mitsuhara confessed to him and the Dodgers just a couple weeks ago. Again, to reiterate, Ohtani's side of the story is that he had never knowingly paid a bookie, even to help cover someone else's bet. So he's saying that part didn't even happen. Again, everyone has said throughout the entirety of the story, Ohtani has not bet, but Ohtani even denying Mitsuhara's story. And since Ohtani said that, Mitsuhara's story himself has changed, where he now admits, or at least he has now said, no, Ohtani never knew about this. So that is both sides of the story. It's worth mentioning, while there are two sides of this story, both sides do mention that Ohtani did not gamble, but that's not stopping certain people from speculating. There are some critics who say that maybe Ohtani did gamble, and maybe that Mitsuhara is simply a fall guy. One of the common criticisms is, how do you not notice $4.5 million missing? How do you not notice $500,000 missing from your bank account on 9 different occasions? Sure, Ohtani makes a lot of money, but that still feels like a pretty significant amount of money to just be missing out on, right? That's a question. I think a lot of people also question, why does Mitsuhara have Ohtani's bank information? Although I would, like to bring up that he's not just a friend or a coworker, he is an interpreter, and it totally is possible that he went to the bank with Ohtani and got the information that way. That actually doesn't seem that crazy to me as to why he could have that information. So, and again, some people pay attention to their finances more than others. This is complete speculation, and to me, jumping to a conclusion based on either of those just thoughts you have, they're fine thoughts to have, but they're not like, no smoking gun there, I think. And also, just kind of, while we're doing speculation, something I thought of is, well, if Mitsuhara truly is just a fall guy, why would you do a fall guy this way? Why wouldn't you just do the first half of it, of him just kind of saying, oh yeah, it was my gambling debts, Ohtani took the fall for me. Adding this theft thing could create some, legal trouble. It feels like that's a added concern that you would have there. So where do we go from here? That is the story. That is what we know. Those are both sides of the story. Worth mentioning, MLB is currently investigating this. And to me, I think this is definitely one of those situations where we can't say definitively one way or the other if Ohtani had anything to do with this. I think that, again, everyone involved is saying Ohtani had nothing to do with this, but it is possible that people are just trying to protect Ohtani, and maybe he did have something to do with this. Again, it doesn't seem as of right now that any bets were placed on, baseball. And if there were, that seems like something that would come out when the MLB does their investigations. So assuming there's no baseball bets, even if they believe Ohtani did place some of these bets, it wouldn't be as harsh of a punishment as we've seen someone like Calvin Ridley get, for example, in the NFL, who he was gambling on NFL games. We'll have to wait for the investigation to conclude, and these things notoriously take a while, but every now and then they surprise you of how quick they take, so we'll have to see. Again, depends on how many rocks they have to look under, right? But, one thing I do have to, a couple other just final thoughts I have, I do wonder even if everything that Ohtani says is true, that his friend, got his bank account information and used it for gambling, part of me does wonder if they still could give some sort of punishment for that. Hey, you're in charge of your finances. If we see you, giving money to a gambling organization, like, that's a sketchy thing to happen. Because if you don't, then could it open up the door for people to always just have a fall guy in this scenario? Which, again, we have no reason to believe that that's what's happening, but it might be more difficult to prove. So could this still be a suspension? Or perhaps maybe you just do something where you say, hey, new rule: if your bank account, if you're related to some sort of gambling with your money, like, even if you say it wasn't you, we're still going to suspend you in the future, but don't suspend Shohei because he was kind of the first one to have this happen. It's just a thought I had. Also, I think, to address something that I'm sure some people in the comments will say, the gambling ads aspect of all of this. So obviously, when you watch any sporting event, you're kind of bombarded with a lot of gambling ads, and I think people say it's kind of hypocritical that they don't allow players to gamble and will come down so harshly on this, but then they'll promote gambling. Well, it's essentially, I think, insider trading, right? That's why it's an issue. I don't think they have a problem if Shohei Ohtani, went and put money on a roulette table. It's more so the concern about could he potentially know something about, even if it's not his sport, some other sport. So that's why they come down hard on gambling, even if they promote gambling. That's the logic behind it. You can feel free to agree or disagree. But yeah, weird story. Wanted to make a video on it, but I also wanted to wait for information to come out before doing it, so that's what I did. But yeah, what are your thoughts on all of this? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.